Hello and welcome to the Ringer Plus show, Ask the Expert Anything. With Before we start this week's episode, we've got some feedback from you guys. I think a lot of you guys are also coming back to the office now. So I think watching a live session doesn't quite make a lot of sense. So we've taken some feedback, and I think one of the key things that you guys really liked about the show was actually on the questions, right? The questions that you guys are giving us, and obviously our expert CFPs are answering them. So this week we have Azril. Hey, Azril.
Hello, hi.
How are you doing? How are you doing? Okay, so Azril's here. He's going to be going straight to the questions and we'll be answering them as best as he can. And we're going to go with this week's topic, which is retirement. Azril, you want to have a really quick introduction about retirement? I mean, we talked a lot about retirement in the previous episodes, as well as in our Ringer Plus financial literacy survey, where retirement planning was always one of those things that people know they should do, but they don't really do it. So maybe we want to just go for maybe you explain the answers. Explain this in the questions that will come. Right, we have quite a few questions, so let's just go straight to it. Right.
Yes, thanks Juan, for the intro. Yes, so there are a couple sets of questions I would answer today based on the feedback that we've often received from our readers as well as the FP clients. So let's start with the
Cool.
first, most basic questions, right? So why do you need retirement? So why do you need retirement, right? So first is the question of the importance of retirement planning, right? So one thing that we know for certain, and this is for all Malaysians or all human beings for that matter, is that you can't fight the father time, right? At some point, each of us will get to the stage where we would no longer be able to earn active income, right? And as a result, we need to prepare ourselves for that period. So different people will have a different time for that, but eventually, our body would no longer be able, and during that time, we would need to have some savings, right? And then as a result, retirement planning is oftentimes the most common goals that we see, right? That no
Right.
other goals that are as common as this. This is why you need to think about retirement, and what you want is to be effectively on the left hand side photo, right, versus the right hand side. You want to be, effectively enjoy your retirement as
Enjoying.
opposed to
Hmm.
uh, be in a situation whereby you'll be worried and will not have enough funds for your retirement. So
Cool.
before we go into the retirement planning in itself, I wanted to debunk some of the misconceptions that people have on retirement, and let's go through the list of misconceptions. The first is that time is on your side, right? So this is quite common. I see a lot of
Yes.
clients, especially the young ones, that still think, I'm still young as well, so I don't think about retirement. But actually, this is a misconception because it is better to start young. In fact, when you're young, the better likelihood would you be able to generate additional return and be able to make compounding interest works on your side. Right? So this is why we believe it's important for you to think about retirement even when you're young. And number two is the misconception around I'm too old. And why would I even need to try? Right? So this is also another misconception that we see where people in their 40s, especially or their 50s, thinking that, Azrael, I'm already reaching the period in which I need to withdraw my APF. I can't do anything about that anymore. That's actually false, right? There's a lot of things you can do even at that age to ensure that you're able to generate sufficient funds for your retirement, and at the very least be able to know what amount that you can retire with and not overspend upon receiving EPF withdrawal. So we see a lot of issues also of Malaysians generally that tend to think that what they have is more than enough for retirement. But we'll show you later what is the amount that you need for retirement.
Nice.
The third misconception is around the placement of the retirement funds. Most of the people think that if I put it in savings account or FD account, that is sufficient. Well, unfortunately, it's not the case, right? In fact, the returns from your savings account and your FD account is not going to be even be higher than the inflation rate that we see today.
Right.
Historically, this is the case as well. So therefore, you have to look at other asset classes beyond your saving account and FD account to be able to give you that return for your retirement. Number four is the question of delayed gratification versus instant gratification,
Yeah.
right? Which is the statement around, I work hard to earn my money and I want to enjoy my money. And this is not a misconception per se. I think you can enjoy your money, but I think it's important to at least allocate some portion, 10 to 15 or 20% of your income today. That certainly you can still enjoy your money, but still have some amount saved on top of EPF, because the fifth misconception is that exactly, is that if you think that EPF is enough, I think you got to think again, and we'll show some statistics later as well, that whatever you have in EPF, and majority of Malaysians savings in EPF is not going to be enough, so therefore you have to think of additional funds that you need to allocate to enable your
Yeah.
retirement. And the six is, and also kind of misconceptions or issues that I've seen most clients make mistakes on, which is that they have prioritized their education fund for the children versus their retirement fund, and effectively, well, expecting their children to be the one funding their retirement upon them working, right? So this is a challenge because of oftentimes there is no promise over the outcome of your children's education resulting
That's
in
true.
higher income, right? And when we looked at the starting salary for most graduates in Malaysia is not substantial, so therefore it might not be enough for you to expect for your children to give you your retirement funds. And finally, the question of the need to understand everything before I make a decision, before I invest. So this is another misconception that I think we need to debunk, because you don't need to understand ins and out of everything. You could do with what you know already. And in fact, what we would teach over the next couple of minutes would give you enough insights for you to be able to plan for your retirement.
Cool. So, oh yeah, this you have some stats as well, right?
Yes, yes. So here, I mean, don't want to go into too much into details. I'm sure some of our readers and our listeners would have seen this many times before already. Which is that, I mean, generally the state this state of readiness of Malaysians are at a worrying stage, right? And this is even worse with ICNR withdrawal and the recent statement that we've seen from the EPF CEO himself.
Yep.
So, well, I think the message here is that you can't just rely on EPF, and you have to look at other ways to be able to generate your retirement funds.
Yep.
So why is it important to prepare for retirement? So let's look at this chart just quickly to see the difference between someone that is prepared on the left-hand side versus someone that is not prepared on the right-hand side. So what you want is the situation on the left where when you retire, you do not have to significantly deflate your lifestyle. Right? So what that means is that if you looked at the left-hand side, your income is going to reduce slightly, but enough to be able to meet your expense line. So what that means is that when you're living, you're able to save that amount, and that amount is sufficient upon retirement of 60 years old. But what you don't want is to be on the right-hand side, which is what we've seen significant Malaysians fall under, and where there is a severe gap, right? Which means that you have to either significantly reduce your lifestyle, or two, have to borrow or get someone else to fund your retirement, which is a big issue. And this is why we want you to be on the left-hand side. You want to be prepared for these instances. And of course, the easiest solution to this is actually to extend that beyond 60. This is what we've seen also, right? People just extend it to 65 or 70 as long as they're able to work. But you want to give yourself an option to be able to retire earlier before 60. So we'll look into what are those options that you can look at.
Cool.
And
So,
yeah,
sorry, carry on.
the most important questions is around how much you need, right? I think
Yes.
we'll stop a little bit more on this, because I think it's very important to discuss these numbers that I'm sharing here, which is the amount, right? So we've seen here is an estimated amount that Ringgit Plus has created for you to be able to retire. And we often talked about the need to get to a millionaire status, right? People often ask us, "Hey, Azril, why you talk so much about becoming a millionaire?" Well, it is for this very reason, which is the middle row here, the comfortable level of retirement. So if you want to retire at a comfortable level of 4,000 ringgit to 7,000 ringgit, across 20 years, you actually need 1 million ringgit in savings, right, to be able to retire, subject to your investment still being able to make 5% return, while at the same time being able to support the increase in prices via inflation. So
Yeah.
this is the amount, right? So, but if you're thinking to yourself, so there's two ways to look at this. So the first is to look at it from perspective of, okay, I want to be able to live at 7,500, for example. And what I need then, therefore, is 1.5 million. But there's another way to look at it. If you are nearing retirement and you have 500,000 in your EPF account, then you should be looking at this and say, hey, I only was going to be able to retire at 2005 as opposed to 5,000, right? So
Yeah.
that's the two ways I think we can look at this. And what this showcase is, when you looked at your EPF savings and you think, oh, I have 500,000, half a million, or I have 1 million, at the point when you reach 55 and you think, maybe I should get that sports car I've always been wanting, or maybe I should get that Birkin handbags I've always wanted. Well, unfortunately, you got to make sure that this is covered first before we looked at the additional things that you want in
It's
life,
true.
because this is the basics that you need for the purpose of retirement. So let me take a pause here and see if there's any immediate reactions here from Pang on these numbers, because it's quite substantial, isn't it?
Yeah, this is huge amount, right? Like I think a lot of I remember in your academy sessions as well, where you actually mentioned like being a millionaire is not really like it's not like a luxury to have anymore, but rather it's more like a necessity, right? Like it, and when you lay it out like this, yeah, over 20 years, like maybe 5,000 ringgit a month multiplied by 20, that's 1 million ringgit already, right? So the temptation's always there. I think when you retire, suddenly you have like this big amount, and you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe I should put this amount into like a new car or something. It is a scary number because being a millionaire is no longer something that you want to attain a certain level of luxury, but it's actually a certain level of necessity.
Yeah, yeah. And then the question is, okay, what can I do to grow these funds, right?
Yes.
So grow your retirement fund. So I think that's the key questions that most would have at this point, because here we've given you the scary stats, but you'll be thinking, okay, well now you got to give me the
So
answer,
how
right? How
now?
do I get
Yeah,
to this
yeah.
point? Right? So well, okay, that's the answer that we're hoping to share with you. Let me pull out that slides. So what can I do, right? What can I do to grow my retirement savings? So first is to look at your EPF, right? So let's look at some of the do's that you should undertake with your EPF. So one thing that people don't know, and this is quite important, is that you can actually top up your EPF funds.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You don't need to rely on whatever that you have contributed plus your employer. But if you feel that your retirement funds is not sufficient, you can actually add additional 60,000 a year, and this 60,000 a year can grow at a very decent rate of 5 to 6% a year, right? And number two, even if you withdraw at 55, you do not have to actually withdraw the 100% amount. So this is another misconception that people say, because you could actually place it the amount that you don't need back in EPF to be able to ensure that the return is going to be consistent for you, as opposed to withdrawing the whole amount. And important thing is to also plan ahead, right? So once you know, okay, I want to be able to retire at 5,000 ringgit per month, for example, and therefore I need 1 million, you got to plan ahead so that you only to withdraw then in those instances actually 120 60,000 a year, as opposed to the whole amount that you have, right? So this is something that you can do in advance of your retirement age, and that you can maintain your investment in EPF and not have to withdraw 100%, because there's a big misconception that you have to withdraw the
Have
100%.
to.
You don't need to, right? But what can you do beyond EPF? So this is a key question. For us, you have to look at other investment assets that can give you a better return over time. And return here looked at an investment that can give you 9% and above. Why do we say 9% and above? Well, we have this rule we call Rule 50/20 or Rule 20/30 to enable you to accumulate 1 million ringgit, right? Which is effectively 50 ringgit a day, and invest in 9% return for 1 million ringgit in 20 years, right? So that's the rule that we've used. And here are some of the selection criteria that you can use to determine which investments asset that can give you that return. And one of the investments assets is unit trust funds. So here, I would like to give you this framework that all of you can use, right? You can look at costs and something that is cheap and ensure that your net return is above 9%. You should also look at the characteristics of this portfolio. It should also be something that is growth in nature, while at the same time there is sufficient liquidity, right? The fund size has to be above 50 million, for example. So these are the five framework that I want you to use to be able to narrow down the selections of unit trust funds out there in the markets, because there's hundreds, thousands of them. So it's not easy
Exactly.
to decide. So and we've made life easier for you. We have shortlisted those 9 funds ourselves. So
Nice.
why don't we do that for you, right? So that's the first three funds with exposure in Malaysia. They are Calf Vision Fund, PMB Sharia Growth Fund, as well as East Spring Investments Small Cap Fund. Um, and if you want to have exposure outside of Malaysia, and we very much encourage our readers to do so, you can look at Asia Pacific exposure. So here are some of the examples of unit trust fund that meet our criteria, right? Principal Greater China Equity Fund, East Spring Investment Dynasty Equity Fund, as well as Afin Huang Select Asia Quantum Fund. And if you want to have exposure into the global market, then you can look at Manulife Investment US Equity Fund, the Principal Global Titan Fund, as well as TA Global Technology Fund. So these are all the funds that have been able to fulfill our criteria, which is 9% return above the past over the past 10 years, have exposure into growth assets, and have high Sharpe ratio, as well as high liquidity on their fund size. So these are some of the names. But of course, I think I have to give a disclaimer too, that you have to invest at your own risk, right? And these are just some recommendations, and this may change over time, right? This is not going to
Yep.
be the final
The
nine
final.
in 5 years from now or 10 years from now.
Yeah.
So you can use the framework that I've shared earlier for you to narrow down and select those funds, even in 1 or 2 years from now, if you're hearing this sometime down the road of the date of this recording. So what can you do? Right? Well, here's a, QR code. We have our partner FSM1 for you to enable those investments. So if you just effectively need to create an account and be able to also monitor the performance. And I think one thing to note as well, and I should highlight this, and I should go back to the previous slide, is that when you looked at the last column here, we make a we show a column of EPF. So if the answer is yes, actually this should allow you to invest your EPF account.
Ah, nice. Yes.
Right. So this is one thing that people don't know too, that you could actually do it
Hmm.
yourself. You don't actually need to speak to an agent and pay 3 to 5% in sales fee, where you could do this yourself at 0%, and you can do it completely online. So that's why we are recommending most Malaysians to do this, because the selection criteria is not rocket science like what we have shown earlier, and you could do this yourself and save that 3 to 5% sales charge that could have contributed to your own assets and for your own
Correct.
retirement. And that's what I would encourage that everyone to. So that's the end of my slide. Actually, Pang, I don't have any more
Ah,
slides.
okay. Cool.
So,
That's actually very interesting. Very short and sweet. And there's a lot of things to digest. I know that there's some really heavy slides that we've shown, but thanks Azril. That was, I think those are the kind of slides and information that normally people actually would pay for, but we're actually giving away for free. Some of those recommended funds, like Azril has said as well, they are available in our Ringer Plus Academy sessions, but also like Azril's mentioned, we actually have changed and updated our recommended funds before in the last few months. So don't just take it and screenshot this video. I know some of you guys do that, and just share across and say, like, this is what Ringer Plus is sharing. It is correct at the time of this publication of this video. But at the same time, Azril, I know that a lot of people are going to have more questions as well. I know that investing for your retirement is a very big story, and sometimes it's very intimidating. So for everyone else who's watching this, do share your questions on our comment section, whether it's where you're watching this on Facebook or on YouTube. We will try our best to answer them as well. So, Azril, any last words for
yes,
retirement?
yeah, very good point there, Pang. I think for those of you that feel still overwhelmed and are not sure in terms of what to undertake after watching this video, we would suggest that you speak to our licensed financial planner. So we
Yeah,
offer one-on-one financial planning services for you to get an expert to review your financial positions, are able to also advise you on the best ways to improve your financial position, which also includes retirement planning. So retirement planning is one of the 6 areas that we looked at. So you can get an expert to lay out a plan for you and looked at what is the right investments asset that you should take on to be able to achieve the retirement goals that you have.
nice. So yes, so everyone's retirement goals are different. We put it very basic, 3 different levels of retirement comfort levels. I think that's the way to put it. But yes, please, everyone who have more interesting or more burning questions that you might have, share them in the comment section, or really like what Azra is saying, drop a line and get in touch with our licensed financial planners through Ringer Plus Financial Planner. But I think that's pretty much it for this week's episode, right, Azrael? I think you have. I know you have a lot more stuff that you want to share, but I'll keep that for the next few questions. This is just retirement 101. I'm sure there are other things that we will get you to answer as well. So that is all for this week's episode. Uh, Thank you very much for watching. And I hope you guys enjoy this new format. If you have more feedback and anything, just let us know. We will also share some of this information over on our Instagram page at Ringgit Plus. So just take a look at that as well. Don't be nice to us. And we have a lot more information to share. So thanks, Azrael, again. I will see everyone and you guys in the next episode.